have Amy, who is here with us from UNLV, and we have Trinh, who is here with us from NAMI, and we are going to be talking about mental health in the workplace. Um, Mental health is something that we all have a little bit of knowledge about because we all struggle, or we all have had to address, or we all have had an experience with mental health in one way or another on some level, be it a minor level or a more intensified level. Um, Especially since COVID-19. So since COVID-19, many of us who have never struggled with anxiety, or who have never struggled with depression, or who may have never struggled with any form of mental health issues, are finding ourselves at that point where we are having to deal with and face some anxiety or some depression, agoraphobia, or what have you. So I think it's very important, that we get this information out to the community. And again, I want to thank you for tuning in. And I'm very, very excited to see how we can help the community and how we can even help ourselves to manage in the workplace. Amy, it's good to see you
Hello.
again. And would you please introduce yourself to our audience and let them know a little bit about your background?
Sure, absolutely. So I am Amy Pourciau, and I have been in human resources for well over 15 years. And definitely the human resources landscape has shifted significantly in the last really 12, 18 months, focusing on mental health. I work with UNLV's Department of Continuing Education, and really excited to be here today for this discussion because it's so critical, really for all of us, regardless of where we sit in whatever business we're in.
Right, right. I absolutely agree with you on that. And I'm sure that you have seen, even in human resources, because it doesn't matter, what area that you are in. Again, this is something that touches everyone, at some point in their life. So I'm sure you have seen some of these issues, or people struggling with them.
Yes, very much so.
Yes, absolutely. Trinh, am I saying your name correctly?
Yes.
Good. It is very nice to meet you. And will you please introduce yourself as well and give us a little bit about your background?
Such a pleasure meeting you as well. Yes,
Thank
so my
you.
name is Trinh, Executive Director of NAMI Southern Nevada. I've been a volunteer with NAMI since about 2014. I actually
Wow.
found out about the organization as a family member caring for a loved one with a mental health condition. So I went through one of their education classes since 2012, and it's been something that I've seen up and close in my family dynamics my whole life pretty much. And so it's
Wow.
an area that I'm very passionate about, and just educating, providing support and
Mhm.
advocacy for individuals and families affected by mental health condition. We're really excited about the discussions that are coming forth, that mental health has come to the forefront of our community, especially during this pandemic, because we all have mental health, like how we have dental health, physical health, vision health, and the fact that we're able to address it and hopefully be more open about talking about it, and
Mhm.
be able to support each other as we're going through these tough times. I'm really excited to see and hopeful to see that going forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, let me start by just asking you, because a lot of our viewing audience may not be aware of what depression or anxiety or PTSD actually is, because mental health is one of those areas that kind of doesn't get a good reputation. It doesn't get its due just, because depression, it has to be clinically defined, but you can still experience it on a low level. Even though you don't meet the clinical criteria for it, you can still be experiencing it on a low level. So what actually is depression?
Is that towards me or towards either one of us?
Trinh, I'm sorry, for you,
Yes.
Trinh.
Yes, I just also want to disclose that I'm not a mental health professional or clinical provider, that sort. Our organization is completely peer led. So it's family members and individuals who have that lived experience that go through our training to be able to share that. So to answer your question, based off of my personal experience
Mhm.
and what I see within my loved ones and what I've learned from the training curriculum and materials that we go through in our education classes, it looks different for everyone. But there are a set of symptoms that people might experience, such as feeling fatigued and overwhelmed. And it could be just a host of things that might manifest itself differently in other people, where some people might eat a lot, where some people might not eat at all. And they might have changes in their appetite. So we just say changes in sleep, where some people might sleep a lot, whereas others might have trouble sleeping and not be able to get adequate sleep. We just know that it changes our different functions, and it makes it difficult to engage in relationships or daily life, such as it might start affecting our occupational work, it might start affecting our relationships, academics, whatever it is in our lives that, just keeping up with day-to-day things could seem overwhelming to someone that's experiencing symptoms of depression.
Right, absolutely. Amy, with what Trinh just gave us, just experiencing those changes in our sleeping habits or our appetites, or, the way that we communicate and all of those different effects. Have you seen any of those symptoms, being in human resources, you're working with employees and employers as well. Are those any of the symptoms that you've seen in individuals, or has it even increased since COVID?
Yeah, I will say, just as a point of reference, I'm also not a clinically trained in this area. What I do, or what I am involved in when it comes to human resources, is supporting employees. And when we talk about supporting employees around things like depression, it comes with a set of, as Trinh is talking about, understanding the symptoms, what symptoms may exist, and also helping people when it comes to articulating it. Sometimes during a depression, people aren't able to even express what's happening because they may not even be aware of it. Depression is a spectrum, right? It's not like you always have it or you always don't. There's a lot in the middle. And so as HR teams, certainly with the organizations that I'm a part of, yet I would say on the national level within human resources, this is a topic that's critical. And it's understanding that there is a spectrum, and the needs, just like Trinh is talking about, it affects people differently. Some people can't get enough sleep, and some people only want to sleep, right? And so knowing that, how we approach as employers, how we approach as colleagues, how we approach as family members may look different. And so to your original question, are we seeing this more often? I think, and what some of our HR research is showing is that a couple of things. One is, yes, we're seeing more of it as a result specifically on the pandemic, yet two, we're also becoming more aware as organizations and employers that this is actually not new, right? Like all of a sudden people just didn't wake up and experience this because of the pandemic. We are also becoming more aware of our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, the stresses that we're experiencing individually and collectively, and being able to start articulating these things differently and more frequently, at least in the workplace. And so there's a lot there. So yes, there's more, and yes, there's also more of a door to begin having the conversations that previously didn't exist in the same way.
Right, absolutely. I totally agree. And I really like the point that you said it was always there. I think it has manifested more, because you have an added stressor. So if you add stress to an already stressful situation, it's only going to manifest deeper. And then you may move up on the spectrum, as you mentioned. So I think I'm very glad, again, I can't say it enough, that we are having this conversation and getting this information out to the community. So it sounds like that you agree the work environment can be a stressful place. It can cause anxiety as well as some depression. And the way that we handle it, or the way that we deal with it, is what's going to be the important factor. And it's important that we understand that you can reach out to your employer, There are programs, but we have to get that information out there because a lot of people may not feel comfortable or they may not feel, secure in reaching out and getting that help. And so that leads me to Trinh with NAMI. Is this an organization that individuals can reach out to, even if they have a program, an EAP program at their place of employment? But a lot of times we fear being labeled, or we fear, just the unknown. When you're experiencing something that you're not familiar with and you're not entirely sure what's going on, it can be difficult to reach out to someone at work because you're worried about your performance. You're worried about, are they going to think that I can't handle the job? You're worried about job security. And so what are your thoughts on that, Trent?
Yeah, of course. So we have weekly support groups for families that are supporting family members or loved ones with mental health conditions, as well as those who are experiencing mental health challenges themselves. And right now, because of the pandemic, we are doing everything virtually online, so they can register, and they can even register under a nickname. We don't collect insurance or any additional information except for their email so that they can log into the Zoom account. And then if they'd like to use a nickname, they can put that in and then remain as anonymous or share as much or as little in the group as they like. But it's definitely a safe space for people to share with each other, to find support. We also have education classes that people can join to learn about mental health conditions and how to either support themselves or loved ones through this time. So definitely, yes, it's open. And once we are open in person, it is a drop-in basis where they can drop in and again, use a nickname if they like to maintain some of that anonymity and, be able to attend. And they could attend one week and decide that maybe next week they're busy and aren't able to attend and then come back the following week. So it's very flexible.
Great, that is amazing. And I think that's very important that you have the opportunity to use a nickname because, again, there's a stereotype that comes along with mental health that really shouldn't be there. Because, as you mentioned in the beginning, we have all types of health. So we have dental health, we have, mental health, we have all of these different areas that just fall under health and wellness, physical health. So it's not anything that should actually be stereotyped, but unfortunately it is. And so again, I'm very, very glad that we're getting some of this information out there. So stress and anxiety in the workplace, Amy, do you find that it affects one gender more than the other?
It's interesting. This is a great question because it's one of those things that when somebody asks, the answer is, well, every gender experiences stress and anxiety, right? Like it's not gender specific. However, the American Psychological Association does research, and they have come up with that essentially about 28% of women in the US, I should preface this by US, identify with having a great deal or extreme stress, and about 20% of men. And so if we distill that down, what does that actually mean? That means like 1 out of 5 men walking around are experiencing a great deal of stress in their life. 1 out of 4 women walking around say that they are experiencing great stress, actually a little bit more. And so what that shows us is that that women are experiencing stress more frequently. Also, the American Psychological Association, I'm going to look at this because I'm going to get it wrong if I don't. Married women report higher levels of stress at 33% of married women versus 22% of single women. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying don't get married. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that there's a lot that goes into that, right? For women, in the workplace, they have all of the normal workplace stressors. Yet we also know that women in general take on the bulk, this is in general, the bulk of the unpaid work at home. And that unpaid work at home is everything from kids and caretaker to dishes and laundry and cooking and all of those elements of labor that oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes gets put on women. And so when you combine that with, I'm working and I have all of these other responsibilities, perhaps at a greater level, there is more stress, and the data and the research shows us this. Now, not negating or downplaying the stress that men experience, because it is very much there, it is prevalent. What we see is it impacts women in general at a higher level than men.
Right, right. And I absolutely agree with that. Being a single mom of two, especially myself. So those unpaid jobs at home they pile up. They pile up,
They
and then
do.
you find yourself having to work, or you find yourself having to work and go to school. And so now essentially you have three jobs, and so there is some added stressors there, which is a perfect segue into the next place that I want to go. So finding employment, a lot of those mothers um, that were stay-at-home moms are now having to find employment. So, and even for males, I don't want to leave anyone out, because as we said, mental health affects everyone, and in different ways. So, um, but for those women that were stay-at-home moms and didn't work before, it can be very stressful, because maybe you've been at home 10 or 15 years. So how much has the workplace changed since you were out there? And how do you feel about leaving your children at home or taking them to daycare in the middle of a pandemic and getting back out there in the workplace? And even for men, having to take on more responsibility and maybe get a second job, or maybe their career area was, you know, greatly affected by COVID. Maybe they were a table dealer or a bartender. And so now you're looking to go into a new career. All of those things can be tremendously stressful. And so I just want to say that EOB is actually here to eliminate some of that stress. So if you are looking to go into a new career, or if anyone is looking to go into a new career, we can help them with that. We can help them to get on that path. We can help to ease some of that stress and anxiety, some of that uncertainty, because that's kind of what it really boils down to in some cases, is uncertainty. Where do I start? Where do I go? What's available out there for me in the community? You know, and we have talked about, the different spectrums of where you can be with anxiety or depression. So if it's on a lower level and it's due to uncertainty or the unknown or not knowing where to start or begin, that can definitely be eliminated before it graduates into something much bigger. Because we know if we leave something unaddressed or unrecognized, that it definitely begins to fester. It's not something that goes away without you doing anything. You're going to have to do something in order to get that relief. So um, our email address is eobcapsnv.org for our listeners. If you are wanting to go into a new career, if you have found employment and you are needing a work card or uniforms or just a little bit of guidance on where to start, if you're needing some job leads or job referrals, even if you need a new resume or a completely different resume from the one that you've been using. Maybe you're going into an entirely different career field. The Economic Opportunity Board is here to serve the community, and we are happy to do whatever it is that we can to help get you back out there in the workplace or just help you on your journey to a new start. And so with that being said, NAMI, how stressful have you encountered anyone in your organization that has come to you with any of those stressors?
Oh yeah, of course. So we have a helpline that the community members can call in to ask for resources and get help for mental health resources. And
Mhm.
especially during the beginning of the pandemic and even throughout as people are calling in, one of
Mhm.
the major things that people are calling in about is the stress from losing their jobs, from not knowing what to do next and being worried about losing their health insurance and not getting mental health resources or mental health support. So that's definitely something that we're hearing a lot of, and just that divide between, well, do I go back to work knowing that the pandemic is out there and being fearful that they're going to bring it back home to their family? So there's this really big divide of wanting and needing to support their family and themselves, but
Mhm.
also not wanting to catch the virus and get themselves sick and
Right.
potentially put their loved ones in danger. of doing that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there are a lot of factors, that we have to consider um, when we're living in the time that we're actually living in. It it's something again that we have to address. We cannot ignore it, and it's new. It's new to everyone because I don't think no matter what age you are, you have not lived through a pandemic, especially of this proportion. So. Um, it's something that affects us all. And Trent, I also want to ask you, what about the youth? Do you get a lot of youth reaching out to you in terms of, I've just graduated high school, my family needs extra support, my mom or my dad's not working and I want to be able to help out. Do you get any of those stressors?
So currently we don't have the youth calling into our helpline, but
Mhm.
amongst our community, as in board members, community organizations, we are hearing that our youth are really struggling. We have interns from colleges like UNLV, Nevada State College, where they are expressing some of those concerns and those concerns amongst their peers as well. So there is, this huge thing going on where between work, family life, and even after college or from high school going into college, what does
Right.
life look like then, missing out on the things that high school students typically would go through during their senior year and their rite of passage, and then going into college, which is already a big unknown for them prior to COVID, and even now having to start college just in a different world. And those that just graduated not being able to find jobs has been really tough and stressful for that population. So
Right.
just all around our youth, I think are really struggling in terms of their own peer relations, their own mental health, but then also seeing their parents and their family members and what they're dealing with or going through.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's important that we recognize that it's kind of full circle, so you need a good support system. The employer has to be involved to offer those EAP programs and those various programs. And the community, again, the community at large is a great resource. And so the Economic Opportunity Board is a community action agency. So we are primarily focused on the community's needs. So it's not just workforce that we address, we also address family supportive services. And so for anyone that is out there who is needing family support or who is having issues with wellness or who, as you mentioned, someone that's coming right out of high school, we service 18 and older. So we can get you started on a new career, even if you're just coming out of high school. If you are looking for an apprenticeship, maybe, or if you are looking for just to start a new career or just a job, maybe your need is urgent and you don't have time to go to school and not be paid, or you don't have time to do an unpaid apprenticeship or even a paid apprenticeship. Maybe you just need immediate employment. The Economic Opportunity Board is here to help you. If you need a service that we don't provide, we can definitely guide you in the right direction. So again, our phone number is 702 445 7105. And you can also reach us on our website at eobcapsnv.org. Um, Amy, as I was asking or discussing with Trinh about those employer programs. So I know that you're in human resources with UNLV. Are you familiar with any of the programs that UNLV offers to their students?
Yeah, I think for this group, yes. And I think for this group, there's a few things about EAP that is important to highlight. And that is understanding your own EAP program. So for those that don't know, it's an employee assistance program. Many, many, many employers have them. And if you don't know if you have a program, ask your human resources department. And the why behind it is most organizations have them. Some are better at communicating them than others. And that's an organizational thing, right? We can't change how companies communicate things. Most of them have them. And some people get concerned about using EAP programs because there's a fear of, what if my employer finds out that I reached out about depression or anxiety? Or what if somebody finds out that I don't have it as together as I like to project that I do, right? Those are very real human fears.
Yeah.
So my first suggestion would be reach out to human resources and understand how your EAP program is run. And the why behind that is most employers don't get a list of what employees are leveraging it. What typically happens is employers get a list that say 5% of the eligible population reached out to the psychological help EAP element. 50% of your eligible employees used dental assistance, right? So understanding how your program is managed internally can give people a lot of comfort in leveraging programming that's available. And EAP programs in general are underutilized across the board for organizations. We're seeing an uptick this year because employers have done a better job of communicating about them, and employees are feeling more comfortable leveraging them. But if you're concerned, understand how your program works and then leverage that as an option, because there's some great resources there. You know, you're talking here, we're hearing about awesome resources, you know, from support, from family members to support those that are working through things. Sometimes it's just we don't know what's available and accessible to us. So for EAP, my suggestion is do a little bit of research, find out how your program is run, and then as long as you're comfortable, leverage it, because that's what it's there for.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that just brings us back to that stigma that is associated, you know, with mental health. It's unfortunate, you know, but as you mentioned, you have rights, you know, you have privacy. And a lot of times, you know, well, all the time, mental health is protected by HIPAA, you know, and so your information is between you and that person that you reach out to. You know, they have a kind of like the Hippocratic Oath, you know, they have
It's an obligation to
right.
keep your confidentiality and to support you through what you are looking to get support through.
Absolutely, absolutely. So they are bound to keep your information private. It's the law, essentially.
Yeah.
It's illegal to share someone's medical information, and it's the same with mental health. So it's very important that we are able to recognize, because a lot of times, even let me just share a little bit about my personal experience during COVID. I didn't recognize, you know, and I think it's the same with a lot of us, that we don't recognize the symptoms or even the triggers, you know, and I hadn't really experienced depression or anxiety or PTSD on any level previously. Well, I'm a mother, so I've experienced some anxiety on different levels, but not in this way, you know, and I just found myself doing things that I hadn't normally done. So I was staying up later at night, and I was watching just the news, and they were talking about how dentists were seeing an uptake because people were actually grinding and gritting their teeth in their sleep, you know, and they didn't really understand what it was in the beginning. And I'm sure the individuals didn't either, but it was anxiety and it was stress because of the pandemic. And so I found myself just kind of bearing down all the time on my teeth. And I'm just like, what is going on? I don't feel stressed. I don't think that I'm stressed, but what will always let you know is your body. You know, the mind is a very intricate thing. And so it can kind of play tricks on us, but the body never lies. Your body will let you know, hey, something's going on. I'm not getting what I need to function efficiently. And so my body was just doing these different things. And then it just kind of clicked, you know, and I have a background in mental health and psychology and marriage and family therapy, but I didn't, even with that, you know, because it was happening to me, I didn't immediately recognize it. And so it's important that if your body is giving you signs, or if your body is giving you signals, you need to stop and say, hey, this is something new. This is something different. What's going on? What's happening? Let me look into this. And once I recognized it, you know, I knew the steps to take to kind of, you know, get some relief. And so that was good. But it's very important, and it's not anything that's super involved. If you find yourself experiencing depression or anxiety due to the pandemic, or trying to find employment, or uncertainty, or any of those things, there are simple steps that you can take. There's so much relief out there in the community for you. And it's just important that we get the information out, because people just need to know where to start where to go. You know, you have agencies like EOB that can help you with that. You have agencies like NAMI that can help you with that. You have hotlines. You can even reach out to your doctor that can give you information and that can let you know what's out there for you. You can do a quick Google search in your city. There are so many opportunities and so many resources out there in the community for you to get assistance. I actually had a client reach out to me last week and he was having a lot of trouble um, just getting through interviews, you know, a lot of trouble with finding employment. And I reached out to him, I gave him a couple of referrals, and he immediately emailed me the next day and was like, great, thank you so much. You know, everything worked out. I found employment. I'm going to be starting next week. And he had just been hitting this brick wall and this brick wall for weeks. And he was starting to get stressed and worried. And so we don't have all the answers. We don't have all the resources, but if we work together, you know, we can help to bring about that wellness and and eliminate some of that sense of insecurity, especially when it comes to employment and just being in the workplace. And I think again, some of those stressors come from not being in the workplace. So it's not necessarily that you are unemployed or trying to find a new start, because some of us did keep our jobs. You know, some of us are still employed, but it's difficult not having that socialization, not being able to see people that you've worked with for 10 years or 5 years or 20 years or whatever it is that you spend 8 hours to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week with these individuals, and all of a sudden you don't really see them anymore. Nami, I'm sorry, Trinh, can you speak to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. And I love the fact that you brought up that our bodies will tell us, because it certainly will. Living with depression and anxiety myself, there's been times in my life at the beginning when I didn't recognize those signs and symptoms. It was
Mhm.
manifesting itself and coming out as, pain in my hands and feet, back pain, neck pain, just pain all over my body, that I continually went back to the doctors to ask, what's wrong with me? What's going on? Can you
Yeah.
do a blood test? Is it iron deficiency? Because I'm getting tired all the time and I'm sleeping 12 hours a day, or these things are happening, and not recognizing at the time, even though I had gone through NAMI classes, I was there to support my family members. But when it happened to me, it
Mhm.
was that stigma of, oh no, it couldn't have happened to me. But
Right.
once I finally saw that, okay, these are the steps I need to take. Maybe antidepressants is the first step, and then therapy. And I think, as you said, when we don't have that support system, or when our lives kind of slow down a bit, or we're not, going to places and we're kind of at home alone with our thoughts. I think something else that hasn't been quite addressed is, I don't know if you've ever heard of the ACEs study, the Adverse Childhood Education, or I'm sorry, the Adverse Childhood Study. I forgot what the E stands for, but it talks about just different childhood traumas that
Mhm.
as we kind of go on through life, these things have been buried away. We've coped the best that we could, and we kind of go on with our lives. And a lot of times these things can come up, although they've remained dormant for such a long time. And I
Right.
think that's also something that people are dealing with as they're, dealing with things within the home, or whatever family dynamics that's coming up for them. They're also having to address perhaps trauma that's been swept under the rug for years or even decades. So that's definitely manifesting itself in all sorts of ways. And people are just trying to cope the best that they could. But we're hoping that this conversation opens up that door for, hey, maybe it's time to find professional help, because I know that that's one of the best things that I've done for myself, which is to get a therapist that can really guide me through some of the challenges I was experiencing. Being able to talk to someone that understands psychology and human behavior and how to process traumas is really important. There's a book out there I'd like to share. If you've ever heard of The Body Keeps a Score, it's an amazing book that talks about how trauma is stored in the body. And we are going through a collective trauma right
Mhm.
now with this pandemic, all ages from kids to adults. No matter what age, it's definitely impacted, and there's a loss for all of us. It's a loss of normalcy in our lives. It's a loss of the daily activities that we were so used to. So we're all learning to cope with those challenges throughout this past year and a half. And depending what our resources are, what our support system is, what our home situation is, people are coping differently. And, there might be some people that are coping well and others that are finding it to be a very challenging time. And it's okay to reach out for help. It's okay to get that support, because if not, that's when it could get really detrimental to our health, our mental health especially.
Yeah, and I think if I can jump in on something that both of you talked about, is so often when we experience these things, we don't immediately notice it in ourselves, even if we are trained or we have a background and understanding of what things could be. And so we have a responsibility, I think, as individuals, I think as employers, I think as parents and children and brothers and sisters and friends, to be able to help mirror or at least engage in conversation when something is different for other people. And I'm not saying like we need to jump in people's business. What I am saying is let's be aware of others, because sometimes right now it's easier to stay more aware of others than ourselves. And that can be for a variety of reasons, yet it happens to all of us. We all have experienced different things in this collective, COVID time, which is a shared experience that none of us will ever forget for whatever reason, whether we stayed employed and have survivor's guilt, or whether we weren't employed and had to struggle to figure out how we're going to support our family, in some cases our extended families. These are all individual experiences that we shared differently. And so being okay that sometimes I can't see myself clearly, but there's other people that are willing to just ask a question and truly listen for the answer of, how are you? What do you need? I've noticed, right? Being willing to engage in those styles of conversation is important.
Exactly. And just to also piggyback off of that, some of the symptoms or things that we might notice is if someone starts showing up late for work and that's not their typical behavior, if they're getting forgetful of meetings or emails, or, this person just seems to be overwhelmed, it might be all things that are piling up on them, and just reaching out and showing that compassion and
Right.
showing that, making that effort to, like you said, listen and make sure that they're okay, and showing people grace, especially during this time, but hopefully even after the pandemic, because we're all human, we're all experiencing emotions. We all get overwhelmed at some point, and finding ways to support each other and saying, hey, it's okay. I know for me, I've learned that when I start feeling overwhelmed and getting those emotions, that means it's time for me to take a step back and do some self-care. It's time for me to take a step back and maybe take a bath, take a walk, exercise, meditate, do something, not press on with work, even though I have a pile of things to do this high. It's really taking a step back and saying, okay, I need this time for me to readjust, to recuperate, and then get back into work once my body is calm and I'm not in this frantic flight or fight system of trying to get through all the work that we have to do.
Absolutely. You both have said some very insightful things in regards to mental health in the workplace, and I really appreciate that. It is very important that we understand, again, we are in a pandemic, and a lot of the feelings, a lot of the things that we're going through are new. And awareness is so, so important, not just self-awareness, but awareness in others. Like, again, a lot of us are still in the workplace, and you may notice that your coworker is maybe a little withdrawn, or maybe they're a little sad sometimes, or maybe they are not as talkative as they normally are. Like you said, maybe they're coming in late, or maybe they're calling out a lot. Maybe they're a little angry, because I know for me, my employment became very stressful where it wasn't stressful before. And so I was tense. I was really tense and just kind of on edge. And anyone that knows me knows I'm the most laid back person, there is. And I'm just like, man, why am I always so snappy and just so tense and just so on edge, like what is going on with me? And it was actually my coworkers. They didn't really say anything to me directly, but when I saw the shift, in the way that we in our relationship, then it that brought awareness to me. So it can just be something subtle, but it is very important to let others know, or even reach out to them and say, hey, is there anything that you need? Is there anything that I can help you with? Or, you just don't quite seem yourself. Are you okay? And some people are very private. Some people may not want to talk about it, but someone also may not. You just never really know where a person is at. And so I think it is important to be there for one another and not to judge, because my coworkers didn't say like, hey, you're out of line, you're just tense all the time, you're just, we're all under pressure, why are you acting this way? That's not what I got. And so a lot of times we have a fear, how are people going to perceive me, or what are they going to think? Or, I have to put on this suit of perfection, that I'm the super employee, or I'm the super person, or I'm the super friend. And that we're human, as you said, Trinh, we are human. And when you experience something for the first time, it can be scary. You may not even recognize it in yourself. And so just that awareness, that being aware, like you said, even though you have a pile of work that's waiting for you, if you are feeling stressed or you are feeling overwhelmed, take a break, walk away. That work's going to be there when you come back. And a lot of employers understand. A lot of employers are experiencing burnout or stress or anxiety themselves, and because mental health is a very private thing in most cases, you don't know what the next person is going through, who they've reached out to, if they've reached out to anyone. So we can't assume that. Sometimes we do kind of assume that everyone else has it all together, and they never need help, and I'm the only one that is reaching out, or I'm the only one that's struggling. It's just that it's not talked about, and so it's important that you put that self-care to practice. Take what you need. If you need to get some time off, talk to your employer. You have rights. You're able to get that time off, if you have it available to you. If you need to go for a walk, if you're working from home, shut that computer down, take a walk, do some deep breathing, do some meditation, do some self affirmations, or whatever it is that's going to help you to get you through. But just know that you're not alone. I think that's the most important thing that we should realize, is that we are not alone. And please reach out. Please reach out for whatever the need is. If you're needing to start a career, if you're needing to find a job, if you're just needing some health and wellness information, whatever it is that you're struggling with, there is someone out there. There is an organization out there. There is a resource out there that will benefit you. And a lot of these things are at no cost, especially because of, again, we're going through this pandemic, and so many of us are dealing with this. We have seen a lot, unfortunately, we have experienced death, on a much larger scale than we've ever experienced it before. And a lot of us are having trouble returning to work because you're just fearful, that anxiety has built up, or now it's PTSD. We don't know what each other is going through. We can only imagine. So reach out to those organizations that are in your community, that are there to help you, and that have the resources that you need. Amy, is there anything that you want our listening audience to know?
I think something that I just want to reiterate is, and highlight when it comes to all this, we are a busy culture. Mm-hmm. We feel like in order to be productive, we must be busy. And that means filling all hours of the day and night. And if we're not filling it with work or family, we're filling it with technology, right? And when we think about it, action doesn't equal productivity. Mm-hmm. And sometimes productivity, especially when we're talking about mental health, productivity is the action, the crazy action of doing nothing, the crazy action of meditation, the crazy action of walking. And when I say walking, I mean, do something wild and don't listen to music. or if you listen to music, listen to something that is not your norm. It can feel startling at first to do these things. And what it does is it helps break the pattern and allow our brains to just be for a minute. And so when we're talking about mental health, the importance of calm, the importance of the ability to self-process is huge. And so when I think about our audience and what we're finding is burnout happening at work? Absolutely, all the time. Like mental health, it didn't just show up during the pandemic. It's been here, right? People have burnt out at work before, they'll do it again after this pandemic. Yet what we know is that space to be a human being, to allow your human thoughts to occur, and then to really decide where you want to go is critical to our own mental health. And so I think as we think about what it is that we need collectively in the workplace or as individuals, we get to have space, because that allows us to understand things, right? If we're worried because we've had a job or a career and now we need to shift, well, it takes space to think about, how do I say, I was a stay-at-home parent, now I'm re-entering the workforce. I need space in my brain, because so often stay-at-home parents think, well, there's nothing transferable here. There's tons transferable, right? If you are a stay-at-home parent, you know how to manage schedules. You know how to oversee different work that needs to get done. You know how to balance priorities. Like, there's so many critical life skills that you have. In order to make those transitions, you need space to think. And oftentimes leveraging to what you're talking about, those resources to help you make those connections about the skills and resources that you already bring, that you could bring to a new organization. You need somebody to bounce off of and help you make those connections, because when we're in it, just like when we're in our own mental health struggles, sometimes it's hard to see it unless we have that support system available to us.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Trinh, I'm going to ask you the same question. Is there anything that you want our listening audience to know, or anything that you feel is important that they take away?
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to say, I agree with everything that Amy has said, because that space is kind of, in a sense, recharging our batteries. If we keep going, we're running on almost empty, and that productivity level isn't going to be as high, because we're just at that point where we haven't gotten the rest. And if we take that time to just sit and recharge, that's like fueling yourself back up so that you could be more productive in the long run. But something I wanted to share is that within our organization, being a mental health organization, we have had to open up and talk about our own mental health in the workplace. We have those discussions every week when we check in. I ask them, what have you done for self-care this week? What has been going on for you? And really providing that space to listen to each other, because I know how much our personal lives does affect our work. And knowing that everyone who comes through our organization as volunteers, as interns, typically have struggled, either have that lived experience with having a mental health condition themselves, or have family members that are dealing with these challenges, and understanding how that affects us when our family members or loved ones are living with these challenges. It's having to have that open discussion. So I think for the workplace, it really comes from the top down, and making it comfortable for our employees to talk about mental health in the workplace. So I let my employees know, my staff know, that we're all human. Sometimes I have rough days too. Sometimes I'm struggling, and how can we support each other in this space when we're going through these challenges? And we have these open, beautiful, supportive discussions, and how we can support each other, and how, if someone needs a day off, a mental health break for a day, that's okay. And we'll be here, we'll pick up the work, and then we'll be here when you come back. So providing that space so that everyone feels safe to reach out and know that they don't have to push themselves to the limit where, they completely burn out, is really important.
That is very important. And I thank both of you for your input and for your comments today, and for being here and for your time. Everyone's time is valuable. And the one thing that I want to say is that a therapist's job is not to tell you what to do, and it's not for them to do the work for you. So I just want our listening audience to know again that you have resources and you have opportunities and you have the resiliency, because the therapist's job is to reawaken and to reintroduce you to that resiliency that is inside of you. You just forgotten about it. You haven't had to utilize it in quite some time. And so you don't feel like it's there, but you have the resiliency within you to overcome and to work on these things and to do better and to be better. So, Amy, like you mentioned, for those stay-at-home moms that have not worked, have not been in the workforce for many years, you are an exceptional multitasker. You know, you
Mhm.
are a great communicator. You have so many skills within you that the workforce definitely needs and that they value. And so it's very important that we just see that value or be reintroduced to that value and that resiliency that we all have within us. And again, the Economic Opportunity Board is a community action agency. And so we are here to help you to get that start. If you don't know what skills you have, we can help you to start a resume and get all of those things down in a way that an employer will recognize you, that will see the value in you and say, hey, I really need this person. Um, for all ages, for males, for females, for 18 and up. The Economic Opportunity Board is here to give you those resources and really that help up, that leg up to get you going and to get you on a better track of essentially wellness. Because if you are seeking employment, or if you're having a problem seeking employment, you know, we all need money to live. We have to pay bills, we have to have clothing, we have to have food, we have to be able to provide for ourselves and our families. And so that definitely ties into wellness. So if you're needing a resume, if you are needing to start a new career, if you're needing employment referrals, if you found a job and you just need assistance with transportation, if you are needing work cards or work uniforms or whatever it is that you're struggling with in terms of workforce or in terms of family support or in terms of wellness, give EOB a call. And if we don't have that resource for you, we can point you in the right direction, because we are a community agency, action agency. And so what that means is we have a lot of community partners that we work with. So for instance, today I'm at One Stop Career Center. I'm here on Mondays and Thursdays. And so that's kind of why you see people walking around in the background. You may hear a little bit of background noise, but we work with a lot of other community agencies. So we definitely have the resources to offer the community. Give us a call, 702 445 7105. And our website is eobcapsnv.org. Amy and Trent, I thank you so, so very much for being here with us today. I think that we got a lot of information out to the community. Trent, is there any way, can you give our listening audience information on how to contact you or how to contact NAMI?
Of course, so they can always visit our website at www.namisouthernevada.org. If you're looking to sign up for support groups or education classes, you'll see the tab at the top where you can just fill in your information and you'll get information about our weekly support groups or our next upcoming education class. Or if you prefer to call in, we do have a helpline to connect you to resources, which is 702-890-9729.
Right. You know, you just reminded me another thing that I want to let our viewers know also is that um, not everyone was affected with the workforce. So some people are just not going to be entering the workforce. Maybe they're at a certain age to where they're not going to be working. It doesn't mean that they're excluded. It doesn't mean that they're not struggling with wellness or these different issues. So Trent, I really congratulate you for volunteering. You know, that's something that's available out there as well. So you may be looking for a place to volunteer. You may not be looking to start a new career at this stage in your life, or you may not be looking for employment. So that volunteering is also an option for you, because it allows you to socialize. It allows you to be busy where maybe you're not doing anything at home. You know, it allows you to kind of focus on your wellness because you have that communication. And communication is very important. You know, as you mentioned, we're human beings and we need that socialization. Not everyone has a family, or a good support system. So thank you for the work that you're doing in the community. I really appreciate that. And thank you, Amy, for all that you do as well in human resources. I think we need to understand how important human resources is, and the gambit of what they do. It's not just one thing, it's many things, because you've come in contact with wellness and mental health. It's not just workforce or employment based. So thank you as well for all the information that you brought to us today.
It was an honor and privilege to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
You're welcome. And so that is going to conclude our webinar. Ladies, I hope to see you both again, because this is an ongoing conversation. This is not something that is a one-time thing. Just the birthing process, coming into this world is traumatic. And so we are going to experience trauma, our entire lives. So I hope to see you all again in the future, no matter what the topic, and you all have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You too. Enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.